Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Bald Move Prestige podcast. This time we're talking about the 2015 boxing film Southpaw. This is a commissioned podcast commissioned by one Dr. DeVito. We'll get to his comments here in a minute. It's directed by Antoine Fuqua, who got his start with Coolio and Gangster's Paradise. Remember that song?
Sure.
Michelle Pfeiffer teaching them kids. Then he moved on to Training Day with Denzel Washington. He's also done a few Equalizer films with Denzel. He's also behind the 2016 remake of The Magnificent Seven, which I enjoyed quite a bit. It was written by Kurt Sutter, who you might remember as being one of the head writers on S.H.I.E.L.D., and he was a showrunner for Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
This movie is scored by James Horner, and this has the distinction of being one of the last of his distinguished career because he died shortly after. In fact, this film was, along with Magnificent Seven, who he also scored, this was among his last films. They were all released posthumously.
Mm-hmm.
It stars Jake Gyllenhaal, he of Donnie Darko, Spider-Man Far From Home, and that's just a podcast that we've done him on. Velvet Buzzsaw, we also did that Netflix movie. He's also been in Nightcrawler, Okja, and we'll be doing Brokeback Mountain really soon, I think next week.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that film podcast coming out. Forrest Whitaker, Good Morning Vietnam, Bloodsport, Last King of Scotland,
Bloodsport. Really blew his career wide open in Bloodsport.
It sure did. Naomi Harris, who I most recognize as the witch Tia Dalma from Pirates of the Caribbean, the lady that grows real big and then explodes into crabs. And then she's also the Money Penny from most of the modern Bond films.
Nice.
Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, he needs no introduction.
Sure.
You can find him
He's
in the club,
right?
If you need to meet him. Una Lawrence, a child actor who I haven't really seen in much else, to be honest. I didn't recognize any of her performances. Rachel McAdams, Mean Girls, The Notepad, Time Traveler's Wife, True Detective Season 2. She's great. This again, I said this movie was sponsored by Dr. DeVito. He's a long-term supporter of Bald Move, commissioned several podcasts, a dentist, Lego enthusiast. All around great guy. Back to commission another boxing film. Do we want to talk about what we thought about the movie, or maybe we can? Maybe I can just let Dr. DeVito introduce it for us because he's got some statements.
That sounds great.
The doc says Southpaw is a 2015 boxing movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal as Billy the Great Hope. Sports movies in general involving teams tend to skew towards comedy, as you don't have enough screen time to dedicate to telling the individual stories of, say, 10 or more characters. So while I'm not a big fan of the boxing as a sport, I do love the ability of a boxing movie to be the simple man versus his own inner demons, and can that man find a way to overcome them as a stand-in for whatever opponent he is set to fight. For the Rocky franchise, films that are widely respected, the entry point is sometimes too much for a novice cinema fan who'd have to sit through over 12 hours of the Rocky saga, not including Creed. So while Southpaw isn't breaking new ground in the boxing drama department, the question is, does it do it well enough? Southpaw hits on every Rocky trope there is from all 6 movies, but since they're a bit jumbled up here and there in a condensed form, which parts of which Rocky movie will be the end for Southpaw? I believe for many people, having fights on screen look like actual modern fights with big production, boxers taking punches, makes a huge difference to the casual fan as it emulates what they're familiar with rather than early Rocky movies taking place with something like only 20 extras and a darkened crowd with big haymakers landing a half foot away from their target.
Yeah.
Southpaw does have this in spades with big real-life fight production, sketchy managers there to take advantage till the next payday, and a family storyline that will tear the heart out of any human parent. I think this is an underrated gem of a film that deserves its place in a cinematic boxing ring, and I hope you can find something relatable with it. Again, thank you for commissioning the podcast, and let's talk about it. Jim, what did you think of Southpaw?
I liked this movie. I feel Dr. DeVito when it comes to like, hey, all of the boxing tropes have been done. And this movie doesn't break any new ground in boxing tropes, that's for sure. Doesn't create any new tropes of its own, just kind of leans on the shoulders of the giants before it, especially stuff like Raging Bull. I mean, if I had to compare a sort of 1-to-1, it'd be more Raging Bull than really any of the Rockies, though I see the Rocky stuff in there. And, we just covered Raging Bull recently, so I kind of had a good perspective on that. And I think where this movie really shines is the family drama stuff, because the boxing is good. Like the boxing itself, I'm not talking about the technique. I'm talking about the parts of this movie that are boxing are good.
Mm-hmm.
They're not amazing. The stuff that really shines is the family stuff, and this relationship he has with his daughter, and some of the events that take place in this movie are truly heartbreaking. I mean, it seemed like when I was watching this movie, every other scene was just a gut-wrenching event. And we'll talk more about that in the spoilers. But yeah, I mean, this got the room a little smoky a few times, and it's movies are pretty few and far between that do that to me. So I don't know, Antoine, or I should say Kurt Sutter, the guy who wrote this, really knows how to like pull emotions out of the audience. I remember The Shield, which he had a lot of, wrote like 17 episodes or something of it, and was a staff writer on there. That show has a lot of moments like that, and surprising moments, and moments where, yeah, you really feel for the character, and there's a lot of family dynamics in there too. I haven't seen Sons of Anarchy, but a lot of people love that show, and he's the creator of that show. So I don't know. It worked for me. What'd you think?
I thought it was really good. And I don't know, maybe this movie, like, because I saw that coming up a lot in like Rotten Tomatoes and some of the other reviews and people talking about it, that it is like does indulge in a lot of boxing movie tropes. But I felt like it not really subverted, but gave some new twists on it. Like the fact that man, I don't want to spoil it, because there's a couple early twists that really took me by surprise. And that's what I guess, like, when you think of a tropey movie, you think of something being very predictable. But like, I think what the doc is here saying is like, you know, which of the Rocky movies are they going to end? Because like, there's different levels of devastation this movie could arrive at the end. And there's also different levels of redemption. And I think that up until the final minutes, you don't really know. You don't really know, because this film does feel very realistic. And the other thing is, like, you know, it's boxers with disadvantaged backgrounds, like, you know, of course,
like almost all of them. Sure.
Anyone that has like a chance at a college degree and a good career and has a good family from a good neighborhood is probably not going to be like, hey, you know what? Let's get in the ring and bash each other's brains in and stuff like that. So it's like, usually you've got people with some problems. But like this, like, I took it to the new level. Like, essentially everyone in a family comes from institutionalism, you know, foster homes and that system. And it's like, I've seen boxing movies where it's frustrating and the protagonist's behavior. And this is too, but it's frustrating, but in an entirely relatable way. Like when this guy gets spun up, it's like, I'm frustrated, but it's one of those things where, like, I used to, and you can hear this a lot in my early Walking Dead. I got very judgy with people that lack a certain mental and emotional strength. But it's like, you know, if I watched a mom who's 5'0" and she's got a hold of her 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old's getting swept away in a river, right? And she can't hold on because she's not physically strong enough, I wouldn't run up and be like, you dumb bitch, I can't believe you let your daughter go in the river. But I felt like, especially when I was younger, I made that mistake with mental and emotional fortitude, where it's like, why the fuck are you acting like this crazy person? Yeah, sure, you might be provoked, but don't you understand your daughter's on the line or something like that? Yeah. This guy just doesn't, like, he doesn't have those muscles built up. He's got opposite muscles, the protect him from the crazy trauma so it's like, I thought that stuff was really interesting. And like, your frustration and helplessness is mirrored into protagonists. And also, we talked about this in a pre-podcast. I don't think of Jake Gyllenhaal often when I think of my favorite actors, but when I look back at his entire body of work, he's got so many bangers and he's done so much interesting shit. And he's just utterly convinced. I would never thought that's one of the first things I thought of Southpaw. I was like, Jake Gyllenhaal is a fucking even a light middleweight heavyweight boxer for real. Really? Donnie Darko for real. But he pulls it off, man. Oh yeah, no, he's the best part of this movie for sure. And in as much as it works because of his performance. He disappears into the role for me, as he always does, which is both, you know, a blessing and a curse for him, right? It means he's a great actor, but it also means
you don't think of him as like having the standout defining roles because he's just a character.
Yep. The movie has a great antagonist that's also kind of believable and understandable. And I think that makes, because like, you know, by the time the third act gets around to starting and like they start pumping the Eminem in there and we're getting ready for the big fight, you want to see, like Forrest Whitaker says, you want to see this guy beat his ass, right? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed it. The other thing that I guess that you got to talk about in a boxing movie, and I don't know, I'm not trying to rush it into the spoiler territory, but the boxing itself. What did you think of the boxing in this movie?
I'm not a boxer. I don't know much about boxing technically, but I've seen a few matches, and this stuff looked pretty good to me. I would say it's definitely not Rocky level, right? It's not them throwing haymakers and missing by 5 yards, but or taking 100 haymakers to the face over and over and over for 12 rounds. I've probably seen better, but this was quite good.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's like, but like, I'm also thinking, struggling to think of where I have seen better. God, I need to go back and watch Cinderella Man, because I remember when I saw that, thinking that the boxing of that movie was really good. But I think this boxing is pretty good because like he is just landing haymaker after him taking so many punches at the beginning, but that's kind of like his style. Right. That's getting him in trouble. And this movie is all about like Forrest Whitaker, you know, not to spoil anything, but teaching him defense, cover up, son, you know. And the way he has a very unconventional covering style too, which I thought,
yeah, that shoulder just like cocked up.
Yeah, remember we used to play Fight Night, and we're like, you know, every once in a while you could choose, you could make a custom boxer, and there's like a bunch of different stances, and every once in a while it's like, how the fuck is a defense like that supposed to work? He's kind of rocking one of those weird, like 12th or 13th variation of a boxing defense, but it looked cool. And I think that's another part of the boxing movie is when I think about like why I like boxing movies, it was always fun to emulate. And like there's some gorgeous shots of like knockouts with like the big arc of saliva and blood coming out, and it's all in slow motion. And I can see it being a lot of fun, like having that squirrely kind of like 100% defensive style counterpunch. The training was also really good, because that's the other funny thing.
Okay. I just don't know enough to tell.
I've only, because I did do some boxing training in my early 30s, and like it wasn't like, you know, Mickey, like, you want to box? Chase these chickens, Rock. Right. Here's a bunch of chickens, chase them. Now punch those slabs of beef, Rock. You know, it's like he's doing like the bob and weave drill with the rope, and the comment. It's like it looked really realistic, especially someone trying to break someone down and like teach them a new style. So like, I thought that stuff was pretty good. I mean, it is a lot of Hollywood, but like the doc says here, the way, like, you know, when you're having a big Vegas fight, it feels like a big Vegas fight.
It does. I mean, down to branding and shit, right? It's an HBO presentation. It's got the ringside announcers you're used to, all that stuff.
Yeah. I thought like Rachel McAdams, I love Rachel McAdams, and I think she's great in the role that she plays in this film.
Incredible, yeah.
Like you really get the idea that she is kind of like his higher brain functions.
Yeah.
You know, like she is just tries to keep him out of trouble, tries to keep his anger away and redirected and focused, and she's just great. There's another person who's such a go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say she's not like the parts that impressed me about that stuff was their relationship outside of the ring. Like she's always there with him by like ringside, you know, cheering him on and stuff. But then when they come out of the fight, there isn't this like Jake LaMotta style violent relationship here, right? Even though he is can be an angry guy and a violent guy, it doesn't happen in that relationship. And I liked that. It was kind of fresh in a way.
Yeah, and she's not like, oh, Rock, you can't fight again. You can't. She's more like her concerns are like almost like a manager's concerns. Like, yeah, you can fight, but you gotta like you look bad. If you keep slowing down and try to fight like you're 20, you're going to get punch drunk. You're going to end up like Muhammad Ali, and you got a daughter, and like she's the voice of reason, not voice of like, oh my God, clutching my pearls. I got to keep you tied to my apron strap. Which I think that a lot of the women in boxing movies had that thankless task of like they're essentially the secondary antagonist trying to defeat the boxer mentally and emotionally, where she's just building him up, keeping him focused, keeping him keeping him sane and sober and clean.
And it needs to work because of what happens in this movie later on.
Yes.
That relationship absolutely has to feel like there is love and affection and support from both sides. And it does. Those actors pull that off.
And I thought that the daughter is first of all, it's really good casting because it feels like a plausible thing that, like, if I blend in Gyllenhaal and Adams, this might pop out. And she's also got like a lot of like, she has to go to some angry places. And she is this, for better or worse, the daughter of this guy. Mm-hmm. And I thought she did really well. And focusing on like the focus between the daughter and the father, it's a lot better than like, Rocky versus Adrian, like having this guy not wanting to let down his daughter, not want to traumatize his daughter. It's good. So like I said, it's like it is a little tropey, but it also uses the tropes in kind of a fresh new way. The boxing is good. Jake Gyllenhaal is just really magnetic to watch. I will say that it is frustrating in the exact same way that if you've ever had like a hot-headed relative or friend that is always in their own way, and it's like, it's like, what their great guy they are when they're not, but like they can't deal with like fucking being triggered by shit.
That self-destructive streak that he goes through at one point in this movie was tough to watch.
And there's a Forrest Whitaker soliloquy that's like just pitched right down my fucking home plate as far as like, that's the thing. This is it's a rigged game, but it's the only game in town. So like the tension between trying to give people like, as he's one of those trainers. It's all about trying to teach children and get them on this, try to keep them playing the rigged game because, 1 out of every 100 times it'll pay out, and 99 out of 100, the other just not playing the game won't. So I like that stuff too. And I thought he was a really good, like a different kind of boxing manager. He's not Clint Eastwood. He's not Mick. Mm-hmm. He's his own kind of guy. And I like that. Yeah.
Playing a character that I feel like I've seen Forrest Whitaker play a few times. I don't know. It's just like something about the eye and the voice, and
it's distinctive.
I don't know that Forrest Whitaker has an eye or a voice anymore as like a human being. I haven't seen him in a while outside of like Rogue One, and I feel like he had the same voice in Rogue One, right?
No, he's got that really weird kind of like affected accent that he sometimes does, where he's like, "Oh, I see.
But it's like raspy and barely there. But it's like he's forcing it out.
And right here is like, I guess you're right. It's like instead of being some kind of high Shakespearean dude, he's just a broken down boxer from the 70s, but he's still got the Forrest Whitaker filter on him.
I found it really hard sometimes during this movie to understand what either of them are saying, because Jake Gyllenhaal is these two mumble fucks barely utter their words. They don't move their mouths, and I didn't have subtitles on this.
Each other a lot,
right?
Like a lot of the court scenes, like you'll have someone like trying to like patiently, and Jake's just losing his fucking shit, and ripping stuff up and tearing stuff up. So yeah. Subtitles are nice, especially when you're getting older and your ears are getting shot.
And the disparity between like the action scenes in volume, but between the action scenes and the quiet scenes is there, and so I'd have to ride the volume switch.
What else we got to say non-spoilery?
Do you think Fitty is pissed that he got fewer songs on the soundtrack than Eminem?
I think the 50 Cent is really happy that he's like super fucking rich from vitamin water, and he's not like super interested in getting his tracks played right now. He's interested in getting paid, being that promoter guy where he's moved up a level or two. So plus like aren't they all part of the same label, like owners and stuff? So like he's probably getting paid off Eminem working. So it's probably a pretty sweet deal. They're all in the shady aftermath. Dr. Dre kind of stable, I think. Anyway.
Did you read anything about the making of this movie or trying to get this movie made? Because it was in like pre-production hell for a little while, like tossed around to a bunch of different studios that were all like, oh yeah, we'll make this movie. And then didn't, and then passed it on to another one. And I read that this movie was specifically made for Eminem to star in, to play Billy Hope.
Oh, I can see that.
Right?
Like
it was inspired by that fucking album he did about like his daughter and the hard luck case that he was during his early life and all that. And they just like couldn't get it developed over like a span of 6 years, 8, I don't know, a long time. And then eventually Eminem was like, I'm out. I'm going to go concentrate on my music in like 2012 or something. And then they signed on Jake Gyllenhaal for it and eventually got it made.
I don't know how good an actor Eminem is when he's not playing himself, but I can't help but think this was a huge upgrade.
Right.
Nothing against Mr. Mathers, but like, is he Jake Gyllenhaal? Is he an
probably not
Academy Award winner / nominee?
Great in 8 Mile. I really like that. But yeah, he's just playing himself in 8 Mile. I don't know. So yeah, that was an interesting bit of trivia. And then to see like his songs on the soundtrack and his music in this movie, it's like, okay, I see what you did there. And then like apparently
he had the rights already pre-cleared and
probably, yeah. He was like, oh yeah, use whatever of my shit you want. And then after he saw the movie, Eminem was like, oh yeah, Jake crushed it. So he had no problem with them doing that.
Okay, anything else we want to say non-spoiler before we kind of dive into the big stuff? Because I was going to say, like, I don't feel like I need to describe this movie. It's Jake Gyllenhaal. He's a boxer.
Yeah.
Comes from a rough background, a little bit of a hothead.
Gets into some trouble. Has to fight his way back out of it.
When you mix big money and big ambitions with that kind of like, lower class upbringing and rough around the edges, that never goes well, right?
It'd be a pretty boring movie if he was just like the champion at the start and he just fought his matches. He never lost and he never had any trouble. And then the movie ended.
That's true. Cause like cause that's the thing is like this guy as a boxer doesn't go through much of an arc. He starts them. Okay. We're going to start spoiling the movie. So if you want to watch this movie, cut it out now and come back and see us. But to your point, there's not much of an arc in the boxing. He starts off as the world champ.
Well, there wouldn't be.
He ends the movie as the world champ.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those inverse like tales, right? Where you go from the high to the low to the high again. So
yeah, and it's like it's all the real development of him as a character happens, as you said, outside the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about that because I'd known this. Like I this has been something that I've been wanting to watch because I do like boxing movies, and it's been out for a while now. So I've been, and then we got the commission, and I'm like, oh yeah, I like the Jake Gyllenhaal. He's always solid, and I've heard the boxing's pretty good. And man, I really love Rachel McAdams. So I'm like, I'm going to be locked in. So I'm sitting here and watching the movie start up. Rachel McAdams dying in like what 15-20 minute mark.
Yeah, it's
I
early.
did not, because she's on the poster. She was in all of like the promotional stuff for this stuff. Didn't she get? I feel like she got a. Did no one get any kind of Oscar nominations for this?
No, this movie wasn't nominated for any Academy Awards.
Okay, but like I remember, she was a big part of the trailers and stuff. So like I was shocked that they essentially fridged her. To develop his character, but it's one of those things where it's like I think it's an excusable case of fridging because, like we said in the outset, her role was essentially to be his higher brain functions, that she keeps him from doing something self-destructive and crazy when people provoke him, either out in public or professionally or whatever. She's the one that can kind of like calm him down. Great story. They grew up together in the foster system of Pennsylvania. They've essentially loved each other since they were like 12 and 13. They've been at each other's side the whole time through his whole career, a successful career. What he has like 41.
40. Yeah, in the 40s.
A perfect career. And they're rich and they have this daughter and all that kind of stuff. And some upstart hothead punk starts, and I always wonder about this shit every time I see like, everyone's posse going at each other at a weigh-in or something. I'm like, one of these days someone's going to pull a knife or a gun, and that's what happens here, and she gets killed. That was such a, first of all, kudos to the movie for keeping that spoiler, I guess, out of the public consciousness, not including, I don't think it was in the trailer. Maybe it was.
I don't know. There's some stuff in the trailer that's like very, very much the end of this movie, which is strange, but yeah.
Huh. Okay. Because and maybe it's just been that I forgot about it, but I was genuinely shocked.
Yeah.
And it had me like Jake Gyllenhaal just reeling.
Yeah.
You know, because I was like, oh, she's shot, but she's not gonna die. Oh, she's gonna die, but like, he's still got the mansion. He's got 50 Cent looking after him, but then all that shit goes to shit, and he loses his dog. Like, and they set this guy up as like someone who can't deal with this kind of adversity and like negativity, and like he's being forced to. And this is why the criminal justice system sucks, because there's no slidings. Like the judge is going to act like you got to demand respect. You got to know how to comport yourself and have decorum, regardless of whether you came from an Ivy League school or from the fucking foster care system.
Right.
And just how traumatic that must be to be a product of that system and see your daughter go into it and also know it's kind of your own damn fault.
Yeah.
It's kind of a miracle he's able to pull himself out of that. I just thought it was like, I thought that was the most compelling thing, is just his journey of trying to learn the rules of this outside fighting without having his coach that he's trusted, his wife, for all these years.
Right. And his other coaches, right? Like he loses literally, and Forrest Whitaker says this, everything he loves, right? His daughter's taken to foster care, his wife dies, his old trainer and his old manager have abandoned him, right? Because he's lost it,
suspended indefinitely, so like that's made sense. Yeah.
Right. Can't box anymore, like everything is gone. So yeah, there's a big downward slide, and then boy, the climb out of that seems bleak.
In fact, there's a couple points in this movie where I thought like this is going to stop becoming a boxing film. Like when he got the gun and went after that guy, I'm like, oh Jesus, he might shoot and kill this guy, and then like it's Jake Gyllenhaal in jail.
Yeah.
That's just like I never, and I like this about the movie, I never quite knew what trajectory the movie was on and where we were going to land.
And they do cool misdirect stuff too. You talked about, Rachel McAdams dying early on. Before that, they're doing some misdirect stuff where I was like, okay, where is this movie going with this? I know he's got to take a fall here somewhere. But if they're doing things with like, oh, he gets hit in the side a lot. They're showing like marks on his kidneys and him spitting up blood the next day after the fight. And I'm like, oh boy, he's going to get, severely hurt, having to go to the hospital and like, take him out of his boxing career for a while. I did not see the haymaker coming, which was her dying.
Yeah, especially since it happened so fast and matter of factly. It's like there wasn't like,
yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like, I was honestly shocked when he's like, what's wrong? It's like, she got fucking shot. And the fact that like no one was held accountable for it was, I thought, interesting. Though, like there was not, as far as I can tell, like, I mean, maybe there's investigation. There was an investigation, but no one was talking. And, Billy wanted to settle it on the streets. So you had that. But yeah, that I thought was a really great engine, because it immediately, because that's when I'm like, well, because these guys were in so much love and there was like no real bubbles and troubles in a relationship before. So I'm like, well, gosh, what are they going to do? This is already subverting my expectations for Rachel McAdams to be just this huge, downer, wet blanket character. And then they kill her. But it was super effective, especially because Rachel McAdams is just so good. She's just like infinitely patient with this guy. I don't know whether she went all the she did all the therapy and he just did all the fighting, because like she's just like on another level about being able to calm him down and communicate and keep his eyes on the prize and what's actually important. Something that like they have a nice parallel, like Forrest Whitaker learns to do that for him too. Like there's this thing at the end where like late in the final fight he's saying, like God's watching you. Mo's watching you. I'm watching you. Your daughter's watching you. Like, like this, don't let this. And it's like, it's all prefixed by him giving that speech about like everything I say to these kids is bullshit. But this guy does actually, you are the one in control. You do have the agency. Don't give this other guy control. Don't make it to where he can just say, fuck your dead wife, and you're going to lose this fight and traumatize your daughter because of this other. I thought that stuff was great. Like him, like also Forrest Whitaker had to talk himself into it. because everything, like, there's a couple, like, everything he knows about this guy is like, this is going to be a lost cause, and like it takes a piece out of him every time he invests in a kid or a project, and then there's like, one of them gets killed in the movie and sends him in a spiral. Like, that's got to just tear your heart out, especially since what you're selling them is kind of like, broadly speaking, bullshit.
Yeah, and his gym is a place also, like I think most boxing gyms are, especially in places like Hell's Kitchen, the worst neighborhoods. A place of like community for kids and stability for kids.
It's essentially an after school program,
Right. When your parents can't take care of you, you come to the gym and you learn life skills and you learn how to
discipline,
be your own master, that kind of thing. Yeah. And there are moments in there where Forrest Whitaker doesn't even want to take him in because like there's a lot going against that, right? They don't like make a huge point of it, but they talk about how one of the guys that Jake Gyllenhaal fought did not win technically, but Jake Gyllenhaal says he beat me, and the only reason we got the call from the refs is because my manager paid him off.
Yeah, 50 Cent fixed a fight.
So now he's coming to this guy telling him, yeah, we fixed a fight so many years ago where your protege could have beat me, and then I need you to train me now. And so there's like a lot of, I guess, forgiving that Forrest has to do over the course of this movie. Especially with Jake Gyllenhaal.
The whole first meeting where Jake rolls in is like, yeah, I'm the former number one heavyweight, and you're going to be thrilled. Like, it's like going into Apollo's manager, and expecting him. It's like, nah, that's not how it works. And he's like, the way it's like, it's funny because he's like, it's one of those things where it's like, a lot of times these types of guys will say anything.
Yeah,
because that's what they say, and to get what they want, right? And Forrest Whitaker sees this because he's like, look, man, we don't allow people swearing here. You saw that kid doing, we don't let that. There's no showing up late. There's no, like, are you fucked up right? And of course he's fucked up. You got to be sober. And he's like, I'll do anything. I'll work as hard as you want. I'll do anything. He's like, all right, we'll start scrubbing out the toilets. You fucking want me to scrub out?
I'm the heavyweight champion of the world.
Fuck this. And it's like, he's like, Forrest, like, yep, I knew it. You said you're going to do, but you can't even back that promise up 5 minutes because you're so fucking bug-eyed crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you gotta like break the stallion and get him to respect before you can, like, but yeah. And it's not like at the end of the movie, like, I don't feel like Billy Hope's out of the woods. It's like he has started on a new path that might be better for him and his daughter, but it's still going to be like every day on the street, fucking people punking him. It's going to be a challenge, because he's still got that hothead. And a lot of it's not like he's, maybe it's genetic, but a lot of it's probably getting abused in the foster system.
Sure.
You don't feel like you have any possessions that are yours. The other kids steal them. The other kids, like, fucking lie and cheat. And the parents and the caretakers, like, it's, and then seeing this, like I said, his daughter going from like sleeping in a mansion to being in this group home.
Yeah,
she thinks it sucks. That was some of the stuff the stuff that was tough to watch, like him dealing with the fact that his daughter doesn't even want to see him. She's disgusted, at his behavior and where things are at, and like saying he hates her and slapping him in the face and all this shit. Like, whew,
and that's the stuff speech that Forrest Whitaker gives him about. It's weird. Forrest has a strange way of communicating in this movie. It's like a lot of sort of broken thoughts and just like implications of thoughts. But there's that scene where they sit down in the bar and he says, look, essentially says, in not so many words, look, you got to let your daughter hate you because she's processing this just as much as you are. And if you make this about you for her, she's going to hate you even more, and she might hate you forever. So you got to step back a little bit from this. Let her figure this out to the point where she can see you without thinking about her mother and how, this is fucked up. And eventually this might come back around. And we talk about like Jake Gyllenhaal being a hothead in this movie and Billy Hope not being able to deal with, minor like perturbances in his life without his wife. But also, he does a pretty good job with that. I'm actually surprised how much he listens to Tick's advice in this movie.
Yeah. Mhm.
and it takes a minute, right? He's reluctant at first.
Sometimes he's got to tear up a bar and walk out pissed and come back 30 seconds later.
But he does come back, right? And I've seen characters in movies be the exact opposite of that. Like, I'll fuck up this entire bar, I'll walk out, and I'll never think about you again. And it'll ruin my life. But there's something in him, and I don't know what it is. It's clearly his daughter, and by the end of this movie, his daughter has become, not in gross terms, but his wife, right? She fulfills the role in his life that his wife did with keeping him on track.
And importantly, he realizes that and starts to course correct the other direction. Like, no, it's not your job to take care of me.
True.
Like what your mom said. It's actually completely reverse. And and like the thing is, like, a lot of times, like, I felt like they did a good job of, like, by the time the court takes his daughter away from him, you're like, because a lot of movies that seems like unjust. And like, I'm not saying it's maybe should have been better, but like, that scene where he goes off and tries to kill the dude, craps out, then wrecks himself in a car, comes home, collapses, and his daughter finds him like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is just a week, like, what, a week or two, maybe a couple days after her mom was killed. And now she sees his dad on a broken, bloody heap on the floor. He is traumatizing her. Mm-hmm. The shit that he's putting her through, she's screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, what's happened?" I don't know. And he's like, when the judge took him away, like, it sucks, but like, I'm like, yeah, that's probably, broadly speaking, for the best. And how traumatic the court scene was, where like the daughter, like, him and his daughter realizing at the same time that this is the last, and he can't even hug her goodbye because the bailiffs are stopping, and he can't even. Mm-hmm. It was emotional, but also like, yeah, this is kind of what needs to happen. I thought not a lot of films take the care to make you kind of like turn against the protagonist the way they did, to show you that this guy, he needs to really like reevaluate and think, because he used his wife as a crutch, like his wife was like his externalized personal development.
But at the same time, they never make you root against him, right? I always understand why he's feeling this way and why he's doing these things. Yes, they're self-destructive. Yes, he'd be much better off if he didn't do these things, but also, fuck, I mean, look at what happened, I get it.
Structurally, this Naomi Harris and Forrest Whitaker are essentially doing dual roles. They're both his trainer. Mm-hmm. Like, there's that scene, like, just as Forrest comes in and is like, "Well, you do anything, clean out the toilets." He's like, "Fuck the," when he's like just begging to do anything to manipulate her into letting him see his daughter, he's just like, "I'm a fucking mess. I'm a fucking mess. I can't do this." She's like, "Do you want your daughter to see you as a fucking mess? Yeah. Is this a good interaction for her?" Like, she's breaking him down on the family side the same way that Forrest Whitaker's breaking him down on the defensive sweet science of boxing side. Mm-hmm. And I thought that parallel to the structure where he's improving in both phases and he's both got like mentors on both phases. I thought that stuff played out really, really well, because it was brutal. Like, seeing him come, like having that like light bulb moment of like, you seeing your daughter is not the important thing here. You getting yourself to where you can take care of yourself and your daughter, that's the important thing. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really great. And there's so many good lines where like, Billy Hope's trying to like talk Forrest with Atticus into like training him for this big, title shot he's got at Vegas, and he's like, "I can't do this without you." And Dick says, "I can't do this with you, man." Mm-hmm. Like, you're not listening to what I say. Like, yeah, I appreciate that, but like, I thought that stuff was really good, and it made it put the ball into Jake's court. Yeah, like, it's never felt like, again, like just like the movie never turns you against Jake. It's like he's just always at a crossroads. Like, every 15 minutes of this movie, he's at a crossroads where it's like, is he going to be strong enough to make this next milestone of development?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that surprised me during this movie, other than Rachel McAdams' death. One of them was how quickly a life that seems so stable can just crumble out from under you. Mm-hmm. It always amazes me that guys like this, with this much money and this much at stake, don't have just like $1 million tucked into some safe deposit boxes in cash that nobody can touch. And if things go wrong, they got the backup plan, right? That's my backup plan.
I think that if I'm reading between the lines, 50 Cent cleaned them out a bit. Like he's
For
living
sure,
a lavish lifestyle.
I'm taking the cash and I'm putting it in my pockets in the form of a safe deposit box. It's like, this is mine. No one knows it's there. I'm keeping it for the hard luck times. And
well, but that's this. So like, did you watch that documentary on like athletes and their money that came out on ESPN? This is like
I don't think so.
Early years of is an ESPN documentary, and I forget what it's called.
Was it a 30 for 30?
It was one of 30 for 30s, and it was about and like I guess one like a problem with when you come from like a lower class background, working class background, is a lot of times people don't trust banks and institutions. They're going to rob you blind. It's whatever you always said. They're foreclose on your house. They evict you. They do this shit. But what you can trust is your cousin or best friend. But like, you know what? The banks have like laws and disclosures and fiduciary responsibilities. You know what your cousin's got? Blood. And so maybe that's thicker than water. Maybe it's not. But, and, you know, maybe your cousin doesn't see it, you know, taking $250,000 for his mom's house is an affront. And so I think that like, because there's that scene where he's sitting down with his money manager and his money manager's trying to explain it. And there's a couple times where Curtis is like, well, you kind of like, I felt like steering around like, well, you know, it's not important about where the money went. We need to get the money coming back in.
Right.
And the fact that he fixed a fight, I think that's what Forrest Whitaker is at some point, like trying to get him to appreciate that the people that you not only are a mess yourself, but you also, the reason you're a mess is because you've largely put yourself in the hands of the wrong people, which is that's the one thing. Like, I felt like it was surprising that Rachel McAdams didn't look at, maybe she's just not good with money either, because like, it seemed like her and 50 Cent were on a pretty good terms. Right.
Yeah.
But I think 50 Cent's just fucking him, just robbing him blind.
The one person in his life, after his wife dies, that isn't fucking him, although, man, this guy takes some abuse from him, probably rightly so. I don't know. It's tough. That whole situation with her dying was just like a flash, right? It's a blur. Who knows who's got a gun? How do you stop him from shooting? Like all that stuff. But this John guy who's like, you know, his best friend, I guess. It's tough to tell, but part of his entourage. And he gets pissed at him. He kicks him out of his house. He kind of blames him for the death of his wife. And then the super like sweet thing that happens, like when he loses his house and all his life crumbles out from under him, John comes back and he's there for him. You know, Billy gave John a house. He was letting him live in his house when things were good. And when things are bad, he's paying him back. Right. I thought that was super sweet. Yeah.
And like, you know, you got one person that's loyal. Yeah. That repays your, you know, I thought that, I like that character as well.
Yeah. The other thing I was super surprised by, but probably shouldn't be given the nature of boxing gyms and the hard luck cases that tend to gravitate toward this profession, is just how devastating. It was like one blow after another. And it wasn't just in Billy's life, right? This kid, Hoppy, who's like a member of the gym, and his dad's violent and assaulting his mom. And then Hoppy goes and he like doesn't stay at home one night, and they notice, but they don't do anything about it. And then the next day he turns up dead. His dad's killed him because he tried to stand up for his mom. And it's just fucking heartbreaking, right? It's like, God damn, everything is going wrong in this movie. But yeah, I guess that's just how it goes. Like, you're going to have a lot of hard luck cases in this thing, and they don't turn out, you know, all roses.
That's why I said his soliloquy was so effective, where he's like, it's just all bullshit. You know, I tell him it's going to be all right, that you can control your destiny, that you can't control shit. It's not going to. Yeah. And that's just like, you know, that's the thing that I think a lot of us are waking up to, is that like, there is still the concept of the American dream, where if you know, do a good education and you work hard and you keep your nose clean, that you will succeed. The success is maybe not rich and famous, but you're going to be able to provide for yourself and your family and be a productive member of society. For increasingly big swaths of the population, they don't feel like that is possible. And how? Like, if you're Jake Gyllenhaal is a walking lottery ticket. Yeah. He came through this foster system with like no parents, no family at all. Like, you know, like we're just like, well, is there anyone else? Is there a granddaughter or grandfather, nobody else but him and Rachel McAdams. Like, if he didn't know how to box, or like if Eminem didn't know how to didn't rap, didn't get noticed by the right person, they're probably a statistic, because it's just like the game is rigged against you. If you're not raised to like, and that's the thing, it's not even being raised right. It's about being raised by parents that don't beat you, that treat you, that like, you know, that you can keep confidences, and that someone will look after you and protect you, and like keep you from developing the traumatic stress, fight and flight responses that you're just going to, like, if you know, you got like these kids growing up like soldiers in their houses, and like, what the hell, and then they get in trouble with the law, because of course, and then they go to the judge and they mouth off to the judge, because why the fuck wouldn't they? And then they mouth off to the parole officer, and they're in it. It's like,
or they don't. Like, you look at the example of Hoppy, and we've had actually two examples of this that we've just covered. We watched the movie Stand By Me yesterday, and that has an example of a kid who's on the wrong side of history here, right? Like, he's in a bad family. The town thinks he's a shit. You got the same with Hoppy, who's in this violent family that's just tearing itself apart. And what does he do? Both of these guys do the right thing, right? They stand up. Like, society should tell you that, yeah, the right thing here is to not put up with this bullshit. And yet when you do that, you get kicked in the teeth. And in this case, you get killed. So like, there's no way to win, right? If you're born into that situation and you try and do the right thing and you still get fucked.
Yeah, it's like,
what does that say about this?
Yeah, what kind of shit is this? What kind of shit is this?
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a rigged game. It's the only game, and that's the other thing, is like, it's a rigged game, but like, if you don't play it, then you're automatically going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you still, it's a sticky wicket. It's a sticky wicket, because a lot of people that don't have those experiences will look at people like Jake Gyllenhaal. It's like, well, why didn't he just do this? Why didn't he comply with this? Why didn't he do? Well,
just because you got lucky doesn't mean someone else will.
Right. Yeah. So it's like I said, like I actually was somewhat surprised that the film arrived at a happy ending, or at least at a nice happy space where we can leave. Because like, I was thinking this might just be one of these, like, you know, Requiem for the Dream kind of like
Raging Bull. Yeah.
Or Raging. Yeah. One of those kind of situations.
Mm-hmm.
So because, like, you know, entering in that final fight, he's got 6 weeks to train. It's the most rigged fight ever. He's fighting against his former promoter, his former trainer, a man complicit in his wife's death, who all he's got to do is whisper in the ear, "I killed your wife." And like, it's fucking on. He just sees red. But like, I really like, there's also like, it's specifically the boxing stuff. I really like, because like, I tend to like the gladiator type boxers, the ones that get bloody and like are game and put, you know, because it's a big show. But like, every one of those fuckers late in their career, like, hardly are able to fight, because like 1 or 2 punches and all that scar tissue in their faces opens up. Like,
yeah, they do a great job foreshadowing that, right? His first fight, the opening minutes, he's already bloodied over that eye, and they're like talking about it. Oh, is the eye going to hold up?
Yeah, like, that's why you can't take all those punches, because it all adds up, and then when you get into your 30s, it like all starts going to shit. I love that. Like, in response to that, the Atticus taught him how to do that crazy cover up style. Like, you just got it's just all counter punching. Yeah, you block a punch and you make them pay for it. There's also like, I've seen POV punching before, but like, this was on a other level. It's like, good. I don't know what kind of rig they use, because when they're punching at the lens, it looks like the camera is taking that shot. It really did feel like I was in Jake Gyllenhaal's body. It's like I was playing that old Punch Out game where you're like the wireframe green guy, and like, it just really felt like I was taking those punches. And like I said, I've seen POV punching before, but it's always been very highly stylized. It's never actually been worked for me the way it did in this movie.
I agree. And I think it's the chaotic, sort of disorienting nature of it. Because a lot of movies will do this POV, but they'll try and keep you in, like, grounded in some perspective. Like, oh, we want you to know that the person taking the punch here is this character. This movie doesn't do that. This movie trades back and forth. You see it from Escobar's POV. You see it from Billy's POV. And they swap back and forth, and it's very disorienting, which really worked for me. Yeah. There's one thing about that final fight. Okay, one thing that didn't work, and one thing that I think is more important that really did work. The thing that didn't work for me is that final, well, it's not even a knockout punch, right? It's the uppercut that levels Escobar.
The knockout, yeah.
it's not technically, he gets back up, right?
Yeah,
and so, but that is all set up, I think, for the true knockout blow, which is the scoring round, the scoring portion of this. Because to me, like, that is, I wished they had done better with that punch, because I was like sort of nonplussed by the punch. It was like, well, they took a break before the punch. There was like a moment of like anti-excitement there. And then they just came in and did the punch. And I'm like, oh, that was lackluster. But then to me, the thing is the scoring round, because you've got his manager, Jordan, who they do close-ups on, right, throughout the fight. And he's over there smirking and smiling, thinking Escobar's got him beat. And you, in the back of your head, you're remembering the lines that he was telling to Forrest Whitaker about how we rigged that fight. And you're going, shit, he's got to knock him out here. And so when Escobar stands back up from that, not what should be a knockout punch, and then they're standing there with a split decision score, and you're like, oh, fuck, he's going to do it again. And this is going to be a tale of a guy who couldn't quite make it back. To me, that was all like really, really good setup for the true knockout blow, which is him actually getting the scoring decision.
And I also wonder, like, whether he beat himself, and that, like, because he did that blow that cost him a full point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like I didn't do the math on the points, but I was like, man, it'd be very interesting, like, if they just completely trade places, if he just like Jake Gyllenhaal headbutts a ref that starts destroying his career. This guy, he's frustrated. This guy's older, slower, but he just keeps coming. Boom, give him a shot in the balls.
Yeah.
And like that cost him a point. I wonder if that like literally cost him the whole fight.
It might have.
Because I kind of like, I don't know if it did or not. I probably will watch this movie again, but like, that's what I'm going to, because like, that would be nice for the theme that like literally none of the boxing stuff matters. It was all about the men's character and how they respond to stress and stuff, because, like, that guy might have the better technique, might have won with even without like Curtis rigging it, or maybe he would have won with Curtis rigging, but that put it outside of the rig. I don't know. I just thought that was something cool too. But I did like, I mean, it is like, I do love a knockout that takes a guy, like an uppercut that takes a guy off his feet, that has him flying back, like
arms spread, legs
and
out.
The fluids are shooting off of him, and it's filmed at like 180 frames a second. It was a hell of a knockout, or knockdown, I should say.
Right.
Like I said, I was pleasantly surprised that the movie had a happy ending. That stuff with the daughter being like, watching him, so much more effective to see the daughter in anguish about her father getting the shit beat out of him than it is to see like the wife who's kind of been the wet blanket the whole movie be like, this is exactly what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
I thought that stuff was just like really amped up the stakes. And was very effective. And I've seen kids like cheering on it, but it's always been in stuff like, what's that Hugh Jackman robot boxing movie where it's like, he's not really in the ring. Real Steel. He's not really in the ring. It's a box. His son's watching him getting his ass kicked at one remove.
If you die in the ring, you die in real life.
You die in real life. If Wolverine's still jacked into Adam or whatever the fuck that thing is. It was very effective. Almost like to the point where I was like, when is a social worker? Because she started like literally getting, I feel like, traumatized, like, oh my god, he's hurting my daddy, and like, what's he doing to my daddy, and all that stuff. And everyone's like, it's fine, girl, it's okay. And she kept on saying, I guess, like, she said smart adult things like, hey, there's a doctor here, and if your dad was really in trouble, they'd call the fight. So, but still, it's gotta be traumatic to see the man that maybe killed your mom whipping your dad's ass on national, and with kind of like implied maybe your life hanging in the balance, because like, what happens to daddy? He just got me back in custody and we're living in this shitty apartment, but if he loses this fight, oh my god. It's good stuff.
It is. I have two other things real quick. First of all, if you're ever trying to break your way out of a hospital bed and you got people around you trying to strap you down, first thing you need to do is pull out the IV, right? So they can't just like inject you with some knockout drugs.
Didn't he do that and they just stuck him anyway? I thought maybe they stuck him. The patter was like, oh, the IV's been torn in there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, that's bald move rule number
5. 8? Oh, if you're going to bust out of a hospital, then start the IV, because if they can just go and give you some more happy juice, you're not going to get it done.
And the final thing was when he comes out in that final fight. he doesn't play any ring entrance music, right?
Right.
And the announcers are all like, it says one of the stupidest lines I've ever heard. Well, when you've got a crowd of this magnitude and the energy in the room, you don't really need music. I'm like, you fucking idiot. You guys have been talking up how this is a death match between the murderer of this man's wife and this once superstar. You're not going to connect the dots between this being a moment of silence for his wife and no ring music. You're just going to say, well, you don't need it because the crowd's so amped.
Right.
That's stupid.
Well, maybe it's a deliberate commentary on how stupid commentators tend to be.
It might be, yeah.
But
the funny thing is that's a real boxing commentator saying that line, right? So if it is a commentary on how stupid boxing commentators are sometimes, then that's this guy commenting on his own dumb ass, right?
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Like, if he's not smart enough to even realize he's doing it, then even
fair,
more of a bravo.
Yeah.
This would be the fight of the millennia.
Yeah.
Can you even imagine like this guy is like under shady circumstances involved in this guy's death, and it caused him to lose everything, including his daughter. And this is all in ES. So like this would be the most anticipated fight of all time.
It's the Drago fight, right? Is what it is.
Yeah, maybe that's maybe the more
it's
like
the
like maybe that's the most cinematic that like. But even then, like killing your rival / frenemy in the ring is a lot different than killing your fucking wife and
the mother of your daughter.
Yeah, to literally lose everything, including your train. Like, you know, at least Apollo's trainer stepped in and said, "We're going to build you them hurting bombs." But I don't know. It's just like I was just thinking, like, God, if that was real life, like I think people that are not even boxing fans, that might be the most lucrative sporting event ever.
Yeah,
like worldwide, people would turn in because it's literally it's like an old fashioned duel, man.
For sure. Yeah, it's like a combination gladiatorial event and a duel at the same time.
Trial by combat. There's like the Westerosi, you know, like lets the gods decide who's guilty and who's innocent.
For sure.
Yeah.
And man, at the moment that I realized what was happening in that Rachel McAdams scene, I'm like, okay, kill this motherfucker. Just get in the ring with this guy and just I want you to be Ivan Drago going to town on Apollo Creed.
I'm somewhat surprised that like because they played that whoever his rival is. Like, is it Caesar? Was that his name?
Escobar.
Right, Escobar.
Something magic Escobar. Yeah.
Because the way he played, like when Rachel McAdams, like he seemed genuinely horrified and contrite about the actions. But maybe that's just like it just wore off really quick. Because like I was a little bit surprised to see him completely lean into the villainy, like to the extent that like you're going to drop that shit in the 10th round to see if you can make this guy go berserk. But that's the thing. It's like I thought there would be more about tracking down the real killer or something, but like that wasn't what that fight was. Wasn't what the movie is really about. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the movie sets an interesting tone right off the bat with the music it uses. Because he's got his headphones on, right? He's in the locker room. He's about to go into a fight. Getting taped up. And he's playing I'm a Motherfucking Beast, right? This Young Gun song that's a fucking banger. And it's going to get you hyped. And that's in his headphones. But then we cut outside of his... What's point of hearing? POH, I guess.
Yeah.
And we get to this very soft, like... not melancholy, but like... mellow score, and his wife is coming in and she's talking to him, like she takes the headphones off. You can feel that relationship dynamic in just the music. I think, you know, it's one of the things that probably a very good music video director like Antoine Fuqua can do is use music in ways to tell a story. And damn, yeah, he really does it here.
Yeah, there's a lot of great songs on this, like the you know Eminem's Phenomenal that made a lot of noise back in the day as a single. It's good. It's good. In fact, this guy, I know this is James Horner's one of his last scores. He died in a plane crash, I think, just at age 60 or something like that. But I remember the licensed music. I don't remember anything like orchestral that he was doing. So yeah,
I just remember that one opening scene where he's got it just a little bit going, and it's good.
But shit, I mean, James Horner, look up his IMDb. He's done so many fucking soundtracks for shit that you've 100% heard. Just Academy Award win. Here, just as Academy Award nominations and wins: Aliens, Field of Dreams, Apollo 13, Braveheart, Titanic, One, A Beautiful Mind, Avatar, highest grossing of all time, Braveheart. Like, it's insane the amount of music that he's made and how influential he's been in cinematic history. And this was one of his last scores. I was kind of listening to it because I had seen that factoid, but like, yeah, I don't got nothing. Maybe it was like 10% when the plane went down or something, but
yeah, it could have been.
Check out Magnificent Seven. That's got a good score, and that was also another posthumous of his. If you wanted to get one of his last in. Anything else you want to say about Southpaw?
I think that's it.
All right. Again, thank you, Dr. DeVito, for commissioning another podcast. Thank you for all your support over the years. It really means a lot to us. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast because I certainly enjoyed watching the movie. Always a sucker for a boxing film. If you like to commission a podcast, it's super easy. All you got to do is go to support.baldmove.com, check out the commission a podcast option. You pay your money. You put that what movie or TV show or whatever piece of media that's 2-ish hours long that you want us to consider. And then we will get in touch about how to do the rest. So thanks for your support again, Doc. We will see you on the next Prestige movie, whichever that is. We got a whole bunch of exciting commissions. I know the next one is Invincible. Is that Amazon? I think that was an Amazon animated series. It's kind of like The Boys Plus. And someone commissioned the first and last episodes, which I thought was a weird choice. But then I ended up in the meantime watching the whole series. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is one of the few that like that's kind of that's a lot of the shooting match. So I'm curious to see what Jim makes of just the first two. I've seen the entire season for context. That's what I think we'll be talking about next. But whichever one we see you on, we'll see you again real soon. Until then, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Jim.
Later.